Hi everyone, welcome back to A.I.R, where we clear the air in the artistic world. This is Irene Garcia. I'm super excited for you guys to hear about my next interview. We interviewed HalleMathieson. She is a beautiful dancer, choreographer. She graduated from La Roche with me, so a dear friend of mine. So I'm super excited for you guys to learn and hear about our conversation. Our call was like an hour, so it was pretty insane. We did touch a lot of different topics, so I hope you enjoy. And yeah, so stay tuned. Bye. So how are you? How's life going?
Pretty good, yeah. I mean, obviously there's a lot of regulations at the moment. I'm not sure if you heard, there's a new strain of the virus. Yay! So in London, so it's 3 hours away. But because of that, just like everybody, it's the same symptoms, just spreads faster. So everybody's like freaking out. So they put London into, they call it tier 4 of a 3-tier system. So London's basically on lockdown. But Manchester is actually doing relatively well, I would say. We just got out of a lockdown. So we're living life.
I'm in lockdown right now. Everything is like closed.
I've lived my whole life in Pennsylvania. And I was born in this place called Greenville in Mercer County. So it's a very small town. And then my family moved to Pittsburgh, like closer to Pittsburgh, when I was in 3rd grade, I believe. And then from there, I went to some, just like recreational dance studios, and basically ended up at Fairgree School of Dance, which, and they gave me a lot of my like passion for dance and my drive, I would say. I don't think I would be the same dancer without them. And then technique-wise, I went to Lincoln Park Performing Arts Charter School, which definitely amped me up with ballet technique and classical technique. And then I studied, of course, bodyography at La Roche. And now I am in England.
Yeah. Yes, I love it. I love that you have gone everywhere in every kind of style of training, and I think that's me.
Yeah. It's very different, right?
Yeah, different bounces. So you grew up in Pennsylvania, basically, right?
Yes.
Have you ever been to Canada?
Well, I've not, no.
Just a random question. Whole like pandemic, how has your lifestyle changed? Even with like the academic or just your normal life, how has that like shifted you with this pandemic?
Mm-hmm. So it's tough because personally, I finished up, my degree in dance performance online. And I found that when I was finishing up my degree, I actually struggled quite a bit to get done my work because everything was online, and I am kind of like one of those people that's high energy, like high traffic in my brain all the time. So, what CC square is, but I'll just describe, when I went to La Roche, there was the common area that people would go in and out all the time. And I could say hi to the people walking by, and I could sit at a table and do my work. And having like the everything going on around me was kind of like stimulus for me. And that's actually where I spent a lot of time doing work. I very rarely would be doing any sort of academic work in my room because I get very distracted when I'm on my own, which seems like it should be the opposite, but just because like when I'm on my own, I'm thinking about all the things I need to do. But like, I need to do the dishes, I need to do my laundry, and I will find excuses not to be doing my work. But, if I'm sitting somewhere, even a coffee shop, where there's some sort of activity going on around me, really helped. But with the pandemic, everything was shut down. So I had to stay not just at home, but in the same place, my parents' home, with my dogs and all the distractions going on. And I couldn't sit in a place that was designated to do my work. My room became my dance studio and my relaxation room and my place of work, you know, and my desk. You know, it just became a place for everything. It was confusing me. So that's kind of continued as we move forward in the pandemic. Both Mariah and I have had some issues working on our essays and things just because we do not like to be at home working. But it also has given me a different perspective on, you know, how much I do have and how much I have access to. So when I get to go out and take classes, I take every class I can get because I'm very appreciative now. Whereas before, sometimes I'd be like, I don't want to go to class today. I'm tired, you know. Now I'm like, oh, you know, to get up early on a Wednesday to take a class that I don't have to take. Absolutely. I'll be there, you know.
Yeah, I know. Like being in person with other people is just like so important right now. And it sucks
Oh,
like
absolutely.
the schools and stuff like shutting down. I know in Pittsburgh like they're writing like petitions like to have schools open up just like any other business because, you know, we're losing the business and students, but we need that interaction in the art, so quite important.
I definitely agree. Yeah.
Worked in Pittsburgh either in school or out of school projects? Not you, like.
Yes, absolutely. Oh gosh. Okay. So probably my proudest piece of work was collaborating with another choreographer and classmate, Mariah, to do a tribute piece for the Tree of Life Synagogue after the mass shooting that took place there, because that was our community. And I think it hit anybody living and working in Squirrel Hill very hard. We thought, oh God, like this isn't something that happened far away. This is something that happened here. So, you know, for us, it was just as much, you know, like a healing piece for us to say, yeah, our experience in this community is important and this community's been hurt. So it was for us, but it was also for obviously, you know, those who were healing from being there or being in that community or seeing or hearing about friends and family being hurt. So we did a little short piece inspired by, not, I guess not inspired by, but, you know, memorializing the Tree of Life, you know, synagogue. And we performed it in the middle of our college center square just to showcase people that we were thinking about it, get them to think about it too. And then because of that, we actually collected money. I forget the exact amount, but I think we collected about $100 to donate to the Tree of Life Synagogue, which isn't much, but for students, you know, pretty good job. And then on a less serious note, you know, I've done a couple of community projects, kind of outreach, but also more fun. So, you know, for example, I was once collaborated with some hip hop dancers and I choreographed a flash mob. It was a flash mob wedding. It was like the coolest thing I've ever done. Like we went to Market Square in Pittsburgh and we started off dancing, which I had choreographed a section and then the hip hop dancers had choreographed a section. We learned a lot from each other because they were untrained and I was trained. They could do, you know, this freestyle hip hop and I was struggling, you know. So it was a really good experience. Started off like a flash mob. We got people interested. Then all of a sudden we all kind of ran up to this limo and then out comes the, you know, bride and the groom and everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's a wedding. And they actually did get married in about 3 minutes flat. They had, you know, a priest on site in the crowd planted. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah. We actually ran into, we were rehearsing for IBG. We ran into those hip hop dancers. You remember that?
What was his name?
Those are the people I worked with. Jita. 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 Yeah.
They're part of that Lost Culture group. Yeah.
Yes. Aren't they amazing? So you had connections all through Pittsburgh doing all sorts of crazy things, right?
It was outside doing something.
And then since I had some sort of flash mob experience with that, I also choreographed a flash mob super short. The other one was a bit extensive, but super short for the American Heart Walk in 2019. So, you know, a few dancers from La Roche were involved and we basically like started off there. What's it called? The Heart Walk. We started off the walk.
I remember that one. I remember that. That was what, junior year for you?
No, my senior year, actually. My senior year. Yeah. It was raining.
Yeah,
The whole
I
time.
remember those footage. You had like there were you guys at an airport or something? It looked like you
It
guys
was
were
it looked like an airport. It was like outside of Heinz Field, but you know what? It was all these booths set up, so I can see how it looked like an airport. Yeah.
choreography and being a dancer. My next question is, do you find it more intriguing to be a dancer or a choreographer?
Oh, definitely to be a choreographer.
Why?
Yes, you agree, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes. Something that I've experienced since I've moved to England, something that I am so intrigued with that I would like to bring this in to classes in America as well. It's the idea of choreographic research and practice as research. Because as dancers, we are often, not all the time, but a lot of people, they look at you and they say, oh, you're a dancer. Oh, okay. Yeah, they think like, oh, you just like to go and put on makeup and prance around. But, you know, our experiences and just lived experiences in general are research. It's quantitative data, right? The things that we discover and the things we do are important and they matter. And not always to the general public, but to us, to our dancers, and to other dance researchers. So, here we do a lot of labs, we call them. So we will get into a studio space. We have a research question or some sort of inquiry. We have a group of dancers and we just have time to play and to experiment. And I have grown a lot as a choreographer, flash mobs aside, I've grown a lot as a choreographer because I'm learning to first off question everything that I do and then to question everything that others do. So, for example, I have a classmate who is very heavily into witchcraft and Wiccan rituals and practices, something I've never bothered to look into, but she brings practices of her own, rituals and things into her choreographic labs. So suddenly that's drawn an interest in me. So suddenly I'm relating with this material that I've never even looked at in my life. And I think that's a beautiful thing because you take a step back and you say, we're connected right now through this thing that I know nothing about and you know everything about. But because of the unspoken nature of dance movement, we are connected. I understand you and you understand me. So, it's that question, it's constant questioning and constant exploration that just makes me hungry, as a dancer and as a choreographer.
Absolutely.
So that's why I like it so much, because you can just explore and you can communicate without having to know anything about the person you're working with. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, you really have to put yourself out there, vulnerability, if you want to like keep digging of what that work is. Like, yeah, I even experienced that even at grad school too, like the importance of like free writing, like just writing whatever it is.
Yes.
And like
Yes.
pulling that out and then creating work out of it is just like, whoa. I didn't know that was a thing. But like, yeah, I'm going through the same kind of phase where you're like, oh my gosh, like choreography.
My world's opening.
Yeah, it's totally different. And why do you think like in undergrad we don't
For that.
practice? Yeah, like why I guess like maybe a revelation as you get older you start like thinking that way, or do you think it's just I don't know, maybe undergrad just wants us to think in that way? Or I don't know. What do you think? What do you think?
That's an interesting question. I think as an undergrad, firstly, you're not so much training your mind as you are training your body. And I think that's really important because if you do want to make it as a dancer, like you can be as curious as you want, but if you don't have that foundation of technique and training, it's really hard to actually, go anywhere with that. And that's not always the case, obviously. We know this, but, I don't think if I had taken the step from like my high school training and just going to fairgrounds and recreational studios and that, if I had jumped right into choreography, I would have had a lot of ideas and I would have been curious, but I don't think that I would be able to understand that level and that depth that I do now had I not had my undergrad experience. I almost feel like you had to have some sort of intense experience that kind of, this is going to sound rude a little bit, but like it has to set you straight.
Yeah.
Because have you ever experienced this like complex where you're like, well, I'm a dancer and I know about dance, and then somebody just like comes in and they're like, no you don't, and you're like, oh my god, wait. Like it sounds a bit like narcissistic, but I've pretty much experienced that, maybe even my freshman year of undergrad, where I was like, yeah, like I know, and then I just got broken down and I was like, oh no, why did I think that was stupid.
It's a learning process, yeah, especially with choreography, because like I never knew like dance could go this deep, It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. I feel like you've always been a really deep thinker, though. You've always been on this level, whereas it took some of us a few years to get there.
No, but like I'm still learning new things, like like how to move, how to interact with the body, and like kind of like what Miss Gia in school would always do. Like I now understood her. I understand her. Like I understand why she does why she does these like experimental things
and the spirals and the experiential anatomy. Yeah.
I remembered I showed a friend that I met in my internship a video of her. She was like, "Oh my gosh, you look so European." I was like, "Really? I know nothing of that, but tell me more." Yeah, it's just I never knew. But yeah, it's great. It's great. All right, my next. Who was the most influential dancer to you as you were growing up in Pittsburgh?
That's a tricky one. Growing up, I wasn't exposed to a lot of legitimate professional dancers, if that makes sense, because of my recreational background. A lot of who was on TV was prolific to me, right? So sometimes it was like, oh, Abby Lee, that's the way to go, It's embarrassing, right?
Pittsburgh, so you saw it,
Yeah. And even here, if I say Pittsburgh, that's the first people. Oh, do you know Abby Lee? I'm like, oh God, here we go again. But in all reality, I think that probably some of the most influential dancers to me were the girls on stage at PBT. Because that's what I thought. I was like, oh, that's cool. So that's classical dance. So, for example, I believe her name is Julia Erickson. She was a principal at PBT. I could be misspeaking, but I idolized those principals and I idolized those demi-soloists and soloists at PBT. And I think that also has a lot to do with the fact that I only got into dance because my grandparents took me to see a show at PBT. They took me to see Casey at the Bat, which was ballet baseball. So, we had season tickets and we would go 2-3 times a year. And then we would go see all these dancers. And I remember we would also go to like this little Greek restaurant across the street, and we would usually run into a few dancers there, and I would go and like have them sign my little playbook. And those were really like big figures to me. And they probably remained that way until I was like a sophomore in high school, and then I started to learn about dance history, and then I could place some real names, that inspired me. So I just kind of grew out of that phase of idolizing ballerinas and into the phase of idolizing dance pioneers.
Good. Nice. Yeah, it's like a shift of different dancers you grew up with. Cool.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. To change bodies with a dance pioneer, who would you be? Think about this. There's so many.
There are so many. Okay. I am really, really into Matthew Bourne at the moment. And I think I'd like to change bodies with Matthew Bourne. Not because I want to be a man necessarily, but I really consider him a very big star and a pioneer in the genre of storytelling as ballet. And I'm doing a lot of research on him right now. And wow, he takes stories. Not only does he retell stories through dance, but he adds these twists to them that make them important and places them within modern society now. So he's taking, for example, everybody knows Swan Lake. Let's just say it's easy enough. So everybody knows Swan Lake and how he's kind of gender bent it. But not only has he then made a story about, gender, because the protagonist is male and all the swans are male, But he's also made a story about society, because these swans don't represent animals anymore. They represent society and how society can be very vicious, you know? And so I wish I could take a step into his body and just like understand his brain, because he comes up with these ideas that I'm just like, oh, I long to be like you. He's like my shining star right now. And he's done this so many stories, the red shoes, Dorian Gray, obviously the Nutcracker, you know, the list goes on and on. And he's just so beautiful as a person, as a choreographer, and, you know, his whole company structure also so successful. But he's very fair with his company members, and like he's got this really democratic process. So yeah, I think I'd like to step into Mr. Bourne's body.
That's super cool. That's someone new to hear. That's super cool. All right, I didn't ask him that question.
It's a very interesting question. To say like, Martha Graham, Hanya Holm.
Well, you're the first person I asked this question, so I just wanted to hear it from you. I acquire, understand why the athletic world, as in like the sports world, makes more money than the artistic world. In your opinion, what do you think that may be? Why that's a thing?
I think because the athletic world is dominated by men. There is a very, very wide gap between women, successful women, and successful men. And makes me very angry, you know? And I'm sure as a Latina woman, your rage probably only bubbles up more because you add a couple minorities in there and people are assuming, and just a mix for not getting paid how you should. But I believe that men often believe themselves superior. If you take a look at the fact that there was a woman who was slated to play on a men's football team, I can't remember her name. And, you know, I went through the comments on this announcement that she was going to play on like a men's football team, and all the comments on this, you know, social media post were just like awful. You know, it's like, tell her that she should get into the kitchen instead of onto the ball field, you know, like really archaic gender roles. Because when people try to break through the barrier that athletics have put up, they just get thrown into this world of stereotypes and assumptions. And so I think to this day, you know, athletics are dominated by men. And in a male-dominated career, we've got egos too. And what man wants to concede that a beautiful ballerina is stronger than his football playing people? You know, that was really good sentence, Halle. But I think that the athletic world needs a really swift kick in the butt, because I do not believe dance is a sport. And people, this is a hill I'll die on. You know, people get mad at me for that all the time. I do not believe that dance is a sport. It's an art, hands down. But I do believe that dancers are athletes and should be treated as such. And I do believe that that's a valid statement, that people will say, well, if dance is not a sport, how can dancers be athletes? You know, I'd like to see you try, sir.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. But we have a long ways to go with the women in the business and corporate world. I do have a degree in business too. So, you know, there's still a huge gap in just everyday jobs. You know, top paying jobs, CEOs, COOs, huge gap. Athletics, bigger gap. Because once it comes to physicality, people refuse to accept that women can be strong and women can be powerful. They don't get paid as such. And even women's sports are not nearly as popular as American football, you know?
Yeah, even like when it comes to like sponsoring women, what is one ballerina that you can name of that is being sponsored by?
The only one that I know of is Misty Copeland.
Do you think that she took the smart pathway as an individual artist, or do you? I honestly don't know like the whole like systematic and like within like contract how that works with you as an artist. But do you think that putting herself out there is a smart move for the dance community?
I do think it's a smart move for the dance community, because everybody can pretty much name Misty Copeland at this point, whether or not you're a dancer. But the problem is, like, I follow Misty on social media, so it's a little bit hard. I know a lot about dance, but the general public doesn't. And I would say that the general public doesn't really know that Misty's not the first one of anything. You know, she's beautiful in her own right. She's absolutely gorgeous and amazing, but she's not the only one. She's actually not the first Black soloist, because that would be, what's her name? Laura. I can see her in my brain. I can't place her name though. But do you know what I mean? I know I can see this beautiful picture of this woman in a blue leotard. I think her name is something like Laura Michaels. Don't quote me on that. Anyways, but there was, you know, a Black ballerina before Misty to make it into a major ballet company and to make it high into the ranks of that company.
Yeah.
Maybe not ABT quite, but you know. So anyways, I'm rambling. The problem with Misty is that I'm not sure she gives appropriate nods to the dancers who came before her. And for her, that's fine. You know, she's made a really good career of herself, and I'd rather have representation, an accurate representation, as opposed to no representation.
Yeah.
But she's like the only one, you know, like she's the only one I see in Nike ads. She's the only one.
But I feel like companies who are nonprofits, who have the big money, you know, the big building, should really like put themselves out there, because you also see like social media taking over. Like you would see like any company member from any company like post, advertise whatever they want because they want to get extra money. But why can't like the company focus on finding those like sponsors to help the community and the dance company as well to gain more money? But I don't know how that would work, or how that actually works, but I think it'd be.
You know what's interesting? Are you on TikTok at all?
I'm not. I should go on TikTok because I feel like everything is on there now.
TikTok is problematic. I like it, don't get me wrong.
Why is it
cracks me up. But I'm always on TikTok. Because so there's these two girls, they're young girls. They're like 18 and younger. The D'Amelios, Charlie and Dixie D'Amelio. Charlie is like a competition dancer, and she just does like dance trends.
Uh-huh.
And she does like shake my hips, you know, she's good at it. She's got millions and millions of followers. And so I think it's a good thing that people are dancing, especially throughout this pandemic. But I think it is problematic because a lot of people are thinking of dance as TikTok dance. And they've got dancers like, I looked up this statistic the other day that Charlie D'Amelio makes as much money as a doctor. And she's like less than 18 years old. And she gets to like shake her butt on TikTok in a 30-second video, and she makes all that money. The reason why I think that's problematic is because then you look at dancers who are like starving artists struggling to survive. And you just think to yourself, like, how does this little girl, who she may or may not even have a career in dance, how is she making a career in dance when she's actually been called out multiple times for stealing people's dances? She doesn't give credits, you know. Oh, no. She started doing that now because she got in big trouble about the Renegade. You've heard of that one? Yeah, she didn't appropriately credit the woman who actually made the Renegade. But all this to say, all dance is valid. I'm not here to invalidate any sort of dance, but TikTok is an interesting phenomenon where people believe dance is shaking your hips and doing this, you know.
It is, but like you said, it is problematic because there's people who go to school for it. They you know, it's a lot of work to do what they do, choreograph, you know, set a piece on the company, like that's a lot of work. So putting it out on TikTok is a little bit like, so what do I do now? Kind of, you know.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm on TikTok like all the time. I actually had a video go viral the other day, which is strange. It was just a video of me and one of my British friends making fun of British versus American dance. But even you'll see in the comments, if you get on TikTok, find me, you'll find my video. It's not too far down, but there are people in the comments that are saying like, that's not British dance, or like, it's just so misinformed. There was somebody who was arguing about like what we had said. It was just a stupid stereotype. I said, I'm American, and I did like a tilt, and she said, and I'm British, and she did all this floor work. which you and I know to be true. It's funny, you know, not everything is like that. But then I had some person on there that said modern, also known as contemporary dance. And I'm like, oh, no, that's not true. Like, these people genuinely believe this. Like, oh, God, your TikTok education is showing.
Yeah, that's the problem. And I also feel like, I don't know, yeah, that's a lot. That's crazy to think about, actually. Whoa. But even when people like for teaching, when people offer to not get paid, that's also problematic.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you're giving away all this like stuff. You're not like, yes, you should get paid because you're putting in the work and stuff. But a lot of people who they want the opportunity also do that whole like, yeah, I want to get that opportunity so that I can get paid, but also like you should have that level of like we should get you paid for that work because you are the dancer, you were trained to do that. So I feel like there's like similarity to that. Problematic of who decides what is best for the dance world when it comes to
right. It's funny you mentioned that too, because I was once interviewed for this position. It would be to choreograph and direct a musical for elderly people. So it wouldn't be like, you know, a full-blown musical. But first off, this is my 5th year at Act One theater school. So I do have 5 years now under my belt of choreographing musicals, right? And then also I'm working on an advanced degree. I've got a degree, you know, I've got all these, you know, credentials, right? So I'm sitting at this interview talking to this man about, you know, how I'd be driving an hour to work with these people. It'd be so good, whatever. Then he just, you know, he has me bring my resume. He has me bring my headshot. He has me bring references. And then he casually throws out that it's pro bono work.
what?
That was crazy to me.
Why would you say
I was sitting in an interview with a professional headshot and resume, you know, talking about all my experiences. And then he said, you know, he's like basically insinuating, like, I've got some really good candidates. I'm not sure if we'll go with you. By the way, you're not getting paid.
Oh, by the way, you're not getting paid for this?
Yeah.
It's not taken seriously then, you know?
And that kind of blew my mind because I was like, if this was I didn't know it was a volunteer experience, you know. I had, you know, made this connection through Maria, and I don't think she knew it was either, because he had asked her. He hadn't even asked me. He'd asked her to do it. And it's like, wow, like, you are really valuing our work so much, but not going to pay us for it. You know, we are artists. This is our career. You know, your career, you wouldn't just go. I don't remember what he did for a living, but like, you wouldn't just go and like do a consultation with a medical place for funsies after so many years of experience, you know. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. We need to get paid.
Yeah.
Shifted from undergrad to now graduate school. What were your expectations, or like what were you expecting, including like your traveling throughout the pandemic? Like, do you want to share a little bit of that?
Sure, yeah. It was kind of a hot mess for a while there. It's quite hard to obtain visas in a normal environment. You know, you have to do everything right. I'm learning it's much harder to obtain a visa in the midst of a global pandemic. So that was a huge issue for me. So my expectation before even going into this was like, oh, well, you know, I've been accepted into this school, so that means like you're gonna help me with the paperwork, and you know, then I'm gonna go, and they probably will have housing that I can look at, and then I'm going to get there, and you know, I built up all these expectations of basically an undergrad experience where a lot of people held my hand and like helped me through it. But you know, in grad school, add moving to a different country, and it just gets a little bit more complex. So then, you know, I'm figuring out that firstly, there is a bit of a cultural difference between Americans versus, you know, British people. British people are very slow, easygoing, chill. I'll get back to you next week. Well, Americans are like, we gotta get this done. We're very fast paced. So, I'm communicating back and forth with people, trying to get just like my financial aid in place so that I can afford to rent an apartment over here. And, I was communicating with a woman who only worked 2 days a week. So if I sent her something, it took her like 2 weeks to get back to me. So I'm like, oh God. And she had like the very last thing to say before I could apply for my visa. Well, then I went to apply for my visa and I did about 4 or 5 things wrong. And every time I called the university, racking up, the international phone bill in the process, I'm calling the university and all they're saying is just keep applying. It'll be fine. Just wait. Everything's fine. We're going to issue you your immigration number. It's called a CAS number. We're going to issue it to you. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Well, lo and behold, they did not issue this CAS number to me in time, and I had to pay a fee, my own fee, to expedite my visa so that I could get here on time. When dealing with apartments, half the time when I told them I was American, they would stop replying. They didn't want to bother with an international, tenant. It's a lot of extra work for them and for me. So I realized that people were not going to hold my hand and help me to get my butt over here. But in undergrad, Maria took care of a lot of that. I could count on her to kind of bring the fire if somebody was like, taking their time or, so it was really frustrating having to navigate it all on my own and not having anybody to ask for help. So that was really, really scary even at times. I'm like, am I even going to get over there? But finally I got over here. And in terms of my expectations for grad school, I pretty much expected it to be a lot of hands-on thinking, a lot of reflection. And it's definitely all that and then some. I'm still struggling with the reflection piece because I reflect on a superficial level sometimes compared to what I should be doing. My tutors here are always like, but why? Like, but I told you why. And they're like, but why? Here we go. And that experience has definitely been what I needed to push me into deeper thinking. I think that helps me in everyday life too, to think a little bit more deeply and to problem solve more truly, as opposed to just spontaneous, let's go for it, let's do this. So, my experience has met my expectations in some ways. It has fallen short in some ways, but it has more than, improved my expectations in some ways. So in terms of the actual curriculum and education, it's been excellent. And I couldn't ask for, a better experience. But in terms of moving here, I have to get it out in the world. I feel like I have to start a vlog or something to tell people it's really not easy to move to a different country. And if you are trying to do this on your own, like, I wish that I had known about the resources in place. Even something as simple as like, I found it too late, but like there's a Reddit thread that really deals with this, that people can go and they'll help you and they'll tell you their experience. I'm like, I wish I would have known that months and months ago.
Yeah. And like, even like thinking about it, like imagine the people who come, immigrants to America, what they have to go without the language barrier. Like if you as an American had a struggle to get over to London or Manchester, right?
Manchester, yeah.
Now imagine a person with no English, no job, like a refugee suffering and they're struggling to get into the country. Like it's
not only do they have all of those issues, those people deal with an immense amount of hatred, bigotry, because if you move to America, I have so many issues with this. America claims to be the land of the free and the land of opportunity and the best country, blah, blah, blah. America does not like immigrants. America does not like anybody who isn't white and doesn't speak perfect English. If you even speak with a slight accent, then you are going to be branded and you are going to face discrimination your entire life. If your skin is any darker than mine, you're going to face discrimination for the rest of your life in America. It's for immigrants trying to come in, bless them. I have so much respect for them, especially with that language barrier.
Yeah.
I cannot even begin to imagine what they face.
It's crazy to think about. But I'm happy that you had an okay transition and you're there safe. So that's good. You know, all for the education. All for the education.
Yeah.
If you were to pick 3 genres of movement the rest of your life, what would they be?
Just 3 genres of movement or music?
Movement, like as in like dance, like any kind of dance genre, like your top 3 or like for the rest of your life that you would carry that with you. What are your top 3?
Musical theater, because we all need a little zazz, a little fussy jazz. Always. European style contemporary, you know, with the floor work, because I struggle with it. And I feel like if you're good at something, then like, why bother? You know, you gotta reach for more.
Yeah.
Which is, I gotta put that in there. And then the third, if I could carry it with me, let's see, let's do a funny one. Just for kicks, something cultural. Let's see, Chinese dance. I've been dabbling in Chinese dance because I have 2 classmates from Hong Kong who, bless their souls, came to grad school for contemporary dance with nothing other than Chinese dance training.
Really?
How cool. Yeah.
Now that is amazing that a program can allow someone to come in like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And Susie, she's about, I think, 34. So she's older. And she teaches Chinese. She's only ever done Chinese dance. You know, she's come in here looking for kind of like a career change and an adjustment. And she gets down on the floor and rolls around with the rest of us, having only this background in Tai Chi and martial arts and Chinese dance. It's like so cool. But if you look at their dance genres, they have like a lot of sagas, dramas, total huge shows. There's fans with really long, like, you know, ribbons coming out of them. And it's just really interesting. So, you know, that would be something pretty cool to do. It's different, but I think it's a style that probably suits my body a little bit more, which is strange to say. I don't pretend to be an expert, but, you know, whereas that European contemporary is like very different for me. So yeah, musical theater, European contemporary, and a little bit of traditional Chinese dance.
I like that. Yeah. I love that. It's so cool that you get to see all these different international people, even like in the UK, you know, because like it's either like you go to the Americas or you go to like to Europe, but it's really amazing to see that mixture of different students. Are your classes big?
There's only 7 of us in my cohort, so it's pretty small. There's 3 in my program and 4 in the choreography program. So like we just work together because we've got a lot of classes that cross over. Some of us are working on different like goals and things, but like a lot of time we work together. And then sometimes we are lumped in with Emergence, which is the performance MA, and I believe there's 16 of them. Mm-hmm. So the most you'll have in a class is 23 students. So not too big, no. But we do have to be careful with COVID, of course. There's like a huge gym that they laid Marley on. That's the space we can all be in. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
So what is your focus at what you're studying? Like, what is it called? Like,
my MA is creative dance education. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at things through a more pedagogical lens. I'm interested in choreography, but like I'm more interested in teaching styles and strategies. Hence the creative part.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. Are you gonna come back to America?
Probably.
You want to stay there?
Yeah, in some ways I do want to stay here. So my visa is valid for 3 years. I feel like since I did all the legwork on the visa, if I'm gonna do it, I might as well, you know, look for opportunities here. But at the same time, it's just, I don't know, like it's somehow comforting to come back to my own training too. So I don't know if I like live here permanently. I want to travel personally. It's part of my goals. So like, I don't think I'll ever really settle down anywhere. I might, base myself out of Pittsburgh, but like, even when I was thinking of just performing before I even got into all this, I was thinking like, oh, I'd love to be on a national tour, because I want to move, I want to travel. And a lot of people say, I wish I would have traveled when I was younger. And I've heard it enough times to know better than to try to put down roots and start my life. So yeah, I think I probably will go back and forth from the UK to the US, but like, honestly, it depends on what job opportunities there are in both places. So now I have what's called a DBS check, which is like my clearances. I could work anywhere in the UK now, with children and adults, no matter if they have needs or anything. And I think that's valid probably for just like at least 1 or 2 years. So I do have that capability to, be here and work here if I want. Yeah. But a lot of it depends on, like, my visa does have limitations, so it's a bit tricky. And it is just harder to live here as somebody who's not from this country. It's just a bit of a different dynamic. Whereas in America, it's familiar and I know what I'm doing. And, I've already got roots too. So I don't really know.
No, Kristen, I had it in my head. Oh, and people tell that you're an American.
Can they tell? Yeah.
Oh my God, really? What do they say to you?
Well, my accent's a dead giveaway.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because they have the British accent. My style of moving, they say, oh, that is so American. Thank you very much. We have like a lot of, I don't know, we have like a lot of standing movement, and they like tend to go down to the floor. I'm not really as comfortable on the floor. Yeah. I call them Halleisms. Like, I think they kind of come from Maria, like little like things with hands and circles and like arms and things. That's not really a British thing. So even if I didn't talk, it's pretty much a dead giveaway. They think that my style of movement is interesting, so it gives me a little bit of an ego boost. But it's funny. People will laugh. They'll go, "Oh, you're so American, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Uh-huh." Where are you from? So it's funny because people either like really love Americans or really hate Americans, just like out on the street, in dance, everybody is like totally intrigued by anybody from a different country. But if I'm like in this grocery store and I'll like call out to Mariah and like 15 people will look back at me and I'm like, who is that? They just hear my accent. They're like, oh.
Who is that?
Where are you from? Are you from America? No.
Oh my God. Okay, last question. It's a funny one. I'm going to time you. So, can you name 6 cereal brands in 20 seconds? Maybe 50.
Oh,
20, I'll give you 20 seconds.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Ready.
And go.
Captain Crunch, Fruity Pebbles, Cocoa Pebbles, Reese's Puffs, let's do Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and Cookies Crisp.
Good. You did it in 9 seconds. 9 seconds. That's pretty good. That's pretty
good.
We
love cereals.
Oh my God.
I should have thrown a British one in there. I should have said Weetabix.
What is that?
It's like, you know how mini wheats are like in squares, but it has like those like wheat strings. Okay, Weetabix is just those wheat strings.
Oh.
It's like the bottom of a mini wheats box.
Interesting.
With no icing on it, though.
Oh my God. How's the food there?
It's okay. It's like, I pretty much cook my own food, so I don't really, get out too much just because everything's closed now, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. This is gonna sound strange, but the food in London was worse than the food in Manchester. So I know we didn't really go out to many restaurants, though, to be fair. Coffee is pretty terrible here. Everything's just a little bit bland, but it's not bad. And like, because I cook my own meals, like I just zhuzh it up, I'm a pretty good cook.
All right. Well, thank you, Halle, so much for being on here on Zoom and for answering my questions.
You're welcome. I hope I was helpful.
Oh, yes. And thank you so much for clearing the air with us here.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Well, I look ugly. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. I look worse.
If anybody watches this, I usually look prettier.
Oh, you're fine. Oh, well, thank you so much. I'll see you later. I'll talk to you soon, too.